Greetings to all, and a warm welcome to our latest live webcast, Versatility in Motion, Your Perfect License. We're thrilled you've decided to join us for this enlightening masterclass. With each episode, we provide new highlights, technical tips, and success stories that will leave you inspired and ready to get your protection, licensing, and security techniques another step closer to perfection. At Wibu-Systems, we empower software publishers and intelligent device manufacturers with cutting-edge technologies, new business models, and tailor-made consulting training. Let us help you upgrade, optimize, and automate your entire license lifecycle management so you can focus on monetizing your business at a higher level. My name is Daniela Previtali, Global Marketing Director of Wibu-Systems, and I'm delighted to have you here with us today. We are joined by Rüdiger Kugler, VP Professional Services and Security Expert, and Jörg Jans, Professional Services, both from the headquarters of Wibu-Systems. To give you a roadmap for today's session, here is what we'll be covering. Together, we will be exploring the versatility of CodeMeter License Central licensing models. The solution offers 21 licensing options, allowing simultaneous implementation of diverse schemes like perpetual, subscription, maintenance contracts, trial, concurrent user, named user, and pay-per-use licenses. Ideal for product managers and developers with basic CodeMeter knowledge, this session provides an overview of these models, tips for best practices, and a preview of feature-based licenses. Before we dive into the content, let's quickly address a few housekeeping items. For all of you tuning in today, we've set aside a special segment at the end of the session exclusively for Q&A. We warmly encourage you to drop your questions into the live chat box as they come to mind. If we can get to your question during the live discussion, rest assured we'll make it a priority to engage with you individually at a later time to address your queries. This session is being recorded, and a link to the on-demand replay will be sent straight to your inbox within the next couple of days. This way, you can revisit the insights shared today at your leisure. And don't forget, stick around for the entire live session and seize the opportunity to win an invaluable 4 hours of personalized CodeMeter consultation with our industry-leading experts. As the webinar concludes, a new browser tab will automatically open, presenting you with a quick quiz. We'll randomly select a lucky winner from those who answer correctly and make the big announcement when we release the webinar replay. Kindly note that if you win, you'll be ineligible for any other prize draws we host in 2024. Be also aware that this brief questionnaire includes additional questions aimed at gauging the quality of this masterclass. While these questions are optional, your valuable feedback will empower us to enhance the quality of our offerings and tailor our online events even more precisely to meet your specific needs. And now, without any more delay, I'm delighted to hand over the reins to Rüdiger. The stage is all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Daniela, for this introduction. My name is Rüdiger Kugler, and together with my colleague Jörg Jans, we will show you in the next hour the second part of our webinar series about how to start with CodeMeter License Central. So today we will cover just a short review of the first part of the basic settings of License Central. Then we will dive into the product item options, which are the options, the technical options that you can use to build, implement, realize your license models. Then we will have a short demonstration in License Central to build up our typical license models. At the end of the webinar, we will have also a section about false friends, so things you should not do, and best practice tips, what you should do instead of. And at the end, we have a preview of the third part of our series, where we speak of feature-based licenses, which is a big topic that we excluded today because it would be too much for one webinar. And with this, I hand over to Jörg for a short review of the last webinar.
Welcome from me as well. And as Rüdiger said, a short recap of the first part of this webinar series. We showed in the first step how to implement and configure a firm code. Firm code in CodeMeter License Central is needed to create the licenses, and firm code is an individual code that issues Wibu to a software vendor, and this is unique. So you have usually a software vendor one firm code, maybe more, but it's something only you can use and only you can create licenses with this firm code. And this is later part in the implementation of the software, because if you use licenses, they all depend on your firm code. In the second part of part one, we showed the global settings, two main sections of the global settings, the one for license creation, so the general rules how to create new licenses. For example, are they returnable? Are they splittable? All this stuff. And in the second part, some useful settings for support processes, like if you allow a reactivation of an already activated license, if the container should be put on the blacklist or not. And in the last part of the first part, we showed you how to set up the CM container types. A CM container is in the end the place where a license can be stored. And there you can set up different ones for every firm code, one cloud container, one dongle container, and multiple CM Act license containers. And those container types are needed later in this part of the webinar if we going into the section of how to define items and create licenses. That was the recap of part one, and then go on, Rüdiger.
Yeah, and now let's take a look at product item options. These are the options that we can use to define our license models. And I want to start with the first option, which is very handy, which is the product item text. And the product item text, it's simply a license description. So typically it's used for the product name or for the name of the functionality. So if you have two different products, Word and Excel, for instance, you would have write Word or Excel in the product name. If you have something like a feature-based license, you would use it for any feature that you say, okay, this is the basic feature, this is the feature change font, the feature hex view, and so on. This product item text has no security. So this is something which can be changed at runtime at the user side. So you typically create a license with License Central, and License Central writes this product item text into the license, but this product item text is not secured. So it can be read out, it can be changed. So it's simply a text field, a caption, a tag for your license, so that your user can identify your license on an easy way. If you take a look at the license models where this is used, then typically the product item text is used for all kind of license models, for subscription licenses, perpetual licenses, and also for floating network licenses.
And in fact, I use the product text in all of my projects, because end user is more convenient with the text and doesn't know what is the number that is used by the software, and therefore use the product text. The second item options we want to show you is the license quantity. The license quantity is always used if you have something countable in your software. For example, either network licenses, floating users, something like this, or if you have locally something to count. For example, how many X's in the technical software you want to support, how many nodes are able to connect with your server, something like that. So you can use the license quantity for two different areas. From the software point of view, you have different access modes for a license with a license quantity. You can either use the user limit, and with the user limit, one of the entities or the available number of license quantities is allocated and cannot be used from any other access. If you have a modular software where you use the same product code for multiple libraries, for example, then you should use a station share, because with this only the first access from one system allocates a license and blocks it for further use, and all other accesses from the same system share this already existing handle. And if you just want to access the license for informational purposes, you can access it with no user limit. In this case, you don't allocate the license, so it can still be accessed from other users, but there are some functions that are not available, so you can't do any cryptographic operations if you have only a no user limit handle, because in this access mode it may already expired license. So, and the license models that are supported for with license quantities are either the concurrent licenses, floating network licenses, everything that involves a server and clients, or you have something local, as I said, something countable, accesses on a machine, nodes on a shop floor, something like that. And in this case, you use the license quantity in a local mode.
There's another interesting license option, which is the expiration time. And the expiration time is a date that you set in the license, and this means the license is valid until. And if we speak about against which clock the expiration time is checked, there is a clock inside any CodeMeter container. So it doesn't matter if it is a CodeMeter dongle, if it is a CM Act license, or if it is a CM Cloud container. Every container has its internal clock, and expiration time is checked against this clock that we call the CodeMeter system time. The expiration time can be used offline, so there is no internet connection needed. And in License Central, there is the option to either set it absolute, which means the end date is the 31st of December 2024, or you can define this as a relative expiration time. And this is a big trick, especially if you speak of trial licenses, so that you say it is 30 days from activation, 90 days from activation. And so we have the powerful feature to set it either on absolute or on relative. And in License Central or in License Portal, there are rules for automatic renewal of an expiration time, so that you create a license like a subscription license, and then it will renew itself automatically in the background. So this expiration time can be used for a variety of license models. It can be used for time-based licenses. I'm just purchasing a license for 1 year. It can be used for subscriptions. In subscriptions, mainly it is used with this automatic renewable licenses, but there are also the option that the ERP system is renewing a subscription. It can be used for trial and demo licenses. In this case, mainly the relative way is used to say, okay, at 30 days. There are time contingent licenses. It's a hard to pronounce word. And in this type of licenses, you buy a 30-day, 90-day, 365-day license. And when you activate the license portal automatically checks in the background, is there already a valid license for this product? And if yes, the remaining days are added with the new purchase days. If there is no license, a new license will be created. If there is an expired license, the expired license will simply be removed, cleaned up, and a new license will be created. And this is the secret of the time contingent licenses. And last but not least, a very interesting use case is the field engineer licenses. So I have a company, they are producing forklifters, and they give their software to their field engineers. And they should use the software without any time restriction. But if the field engineer leaves the company, they of course want to make sure that he no longer can use the software. And that's why this is similar to an automatic renewal subscription license. So they get a license. This license renews itself automatically in the background. And as soon as the field engineer leaves the company, this automatic renewal process stops. So it's mainly about the calculation. How long the license will be valid is different for the subscription and field engineer licenses, but the model in the background or the technical implementation is very close to each other.
The next license options we want to take a look at is the feature map. The feature map offers 32 bits. It's a unsigned int 32 value. And with those bits, you can flag if a specific module is available or not. Or you can flag it for versions that you say, okay, if some special bit is set, it is version 2020, next bit is 2021. And this comes handy if you want to have special update paths. Or you can use the flags for flagging editions, for example, premium, basic, ultra, and such stuff. Interesting part is the feature code. The feature code is used from your application to access the license, and this feature code is then part of the encryption process. So if you use this for versioning of your software or for different modules, every different feature code that you use will use different encryption keys and therefore enhance the security. The check is quite simple. In the license, a feature map is stored. A feature map consists of those 32 bits, and the software demands a specific feature code. And then this feature code is checked against the feature map, and only if all bits are set, the license will be returned by CodeMeter License Central, or CodeMeter Runtime, sorry. Feature map is used in different license models. We mainly use it for version-based licenses. Of course, you can do the feature-based licensing as well, but in this case, the name is a little bit misleading because we show you later on why a feature map is not that good to use it for features. So mainly version-based licensing, or as I said, flagging of versions or editions to say this is a demo, this is a full license. The next is maintenance period. So we stay in this area, version-based licensing. The maintenance period is a time range where your end user can have a contract for. And as long as this time range is valid, all new versions that are released inside of that time range will be run immediately. So with the maintenance period, you grant the right for updates. And old versions still run after a maintenance period is expired. So in the end, end user is bound to the last released license of his maintenance contract, and that's the main difference to the expiration time. With the expiration time, the software don't work any longer if it is expired. An expired maintenance period just binds you to the last released version. As with the feature map, the release date of the software is part of the encryption process as well, and therefore you have different key sets for different releases of your software. In this case, you just need to specify the release date during the AX protector protecting process. If you don't use AX Protector, but only the core API, you can use the release date in the CM access, or you need to set it in the CM access, and then you have the same effect. And the check is quite simple. The release date of the software must be in the time range, so younger than the start of the periods, and older than the start of the maintenance period and younger than the end of the maintenance period. Two rules. If you have a release date in the software but no maintenance period in the license, your software runs. If you have a maintenance period in the license but no release date in the software, your software runs. And the license models that are covered with maintenance period are version-based licenses, so that you can ensure the software only runs if a specific license is there, or for maintenance and support contracts. Those are the main areas.
Unit counter is the next interesting license property. And the unit counter can be used to count something, so maybe counting usage credits, It can be used for prepaid charging. It can be used for pay-per-use based billing, which is postpaid. And typically, the unit counter is filled via CodeMeter License Central, maybe 100 units. And then the software uses the 100 units, and then the counter is recharged, refilled via CodeMeter License Central. And if there are some units left, maybe 20 are left, and your refilling is with 100, then of course, after refilling, the result is 120 units. So, and typically, your software decrements this during runtime. And the decrement is connected to an encryption-decryption process. And so if you want to make it tamper-proof against tampering and manipulation, then you can use the decryption, encryption result for something inside your software, which makes sure that if the decrement took place, you can use the result is okay. If the decrement did not take place or something error occurred, and then, of course, the result is wrong, and then your software cannot continue working. And so there's the option to implement this in a tamper-proofed way using the encryption, decryption capabilities and the strong connection between the unit counter decrement and the encryption, decryption. And as already mentioned, this can be used for pay-per-use licenses. I have an example that driving school software is using this, and they sell the amount of exams created with the software. And so the driving school purchases 100 exams, and every time when an exam is printed out, the certificate is printed out, the unit counter is reduced by 1. And if the 100 certificates are used, or the 100 exams are used, then the software says, okay, you can no longer print, you need to recharge the amount of exams. Another option is the postpaid option, which means we fill the unit counter with a high value, maybe maximum value 60 million. And then every time we decrement this, one sample is a printer, and we're counting the amount of printed pages on this printer using the unit counter. And so they started with the max value 16 million, and the difference that they get the unit counter back once per month or something like this. And then they check the difference between last month and the current month. And so this difference is the used units, and then they create and bill an invoice for the amount of used units. By the way, for this, there is this CodeMeter system time. There's a timestamp with the CodeMeter system time in the feedback from the customer, so that you can check as software developer that the update for the context file, including the current counter, is not manipulated from the software user to you as software vendor. Similar to the postpaid, it's possible to count the totally running time, total elapsed running time. This is used in example for PLCs, where you have a dongle inside and you want to count the uptime of the PLC. And so this is an option which is very similar to the postpaid, high counter and then decrementing it. And it can be used for overflow and standby licenses. So a typical use case is you sell 10 floating network licenses, but your customer says, oh, maybe I need 11 or 12, but I need them only 1 or 2 per year, maybe at Christmas time, at summer vacation, at special time frames. And for this, you say, okay, I give you the 10 user licenses, and I give you 2 more licenses with this unit counter. And then we count how often and how long it is used by decrementing the counter, maybe once per minute, once per 10 minutes, once per hour. And so at the end of the year, you can check together with your customer how long was this overflow and standby license used, and then you can define the price model or negotiate a price model for this overflow and standby licenses. Similar to this, it can also be used for emergency licenses. So this means you have 100 minutes, 120 minutes, 2 hours, and you plug in the key, and then the software runs either for 2 hours now, or for 1 hour now and 1 hour tomorrow, or 1 minute now. So this is something that you can implement also as an emergency license. Emergency license mainly is a CodeMeter dongle, which is in a special box, and then you plug it in if everything fails, and then you can use the software for X hours. Last but not least for today, the named user licenses. And this is a license model where when you bind a license to a user, and typically there's the option to bind it to the logged in user name or to the logged in user name and domain name. Or there's the option, we call this a user-defined text. So you need to hand over a string to the access API. And then we check if the string that you hand over is fitting to the string programmed in the license. So this could be an email address. This could be your login to your online system. So you can with this option, you can connect it to any user identity that you want to have. When the software starts and there are named user licenses, the software takes the name of the current logged in user, takes this user-defined string, takes everything automatically, sends it to the CodeMeter runtime, and then CodeMeter runtime checks is there best fit of licenses. And this is done automatically in the background. And if you have, for instance, a floating user license, let's say 10 floating user licenses and the named user license, and let's say the named user license is for me for RK. I'm starting the software, and then the software finds out, oh, there is a named user license for RK and a floating user license. In this case, it will automatically take the RK license and keep the other floating user licenses open for all the other users. But if Jörg would start a software, JJ, then its software would recognize, or CodeMeter runtime would recognize, there is no named user license for JJ, so it will not touch the named user licenses. It will take one of the floating user licenses. This license or the username can be stored as a hash value or in plain text. I personally prefer the plain text because for error handling, it is easier if the customer sees the username which is in the license. And typically, due to data protection reasons, for me, it makes no sense to hide his own username for the user itself. But there's the option to store this as a hash value if this is needed due to privacy reasons. In License Portal, there's the option to define rules, how often and when it is possible to change the named user of a license or the username of a named user license. A typical use case is you don't want to allow the user to use a named user license in a pseudo floating or pseudo concurrent mode, because you could activate the license from License Central, enter the username, then if you would return it to License Central, change the username and activate again somewhere else, it would be pseudo floating. And in this case, it is possible to say you need to stick it for 30 days, and after 30 days you can change it. So that means you give a license to a user, and if the user leaves the company in 30 days, 90 days, 1 year, 2 years, it's no problem to take the license, remove it from him and give it to another user, but you cannot use it as a pseudo floating license and change it every minute or something like this. And used license models, of course, I think this is quite easy and obvious. It is the named user license.
What a surprise, yes. So we picked those license options that are used in the most different license models, but Daniela mentioned in the intro there are 21 product item options, and here we have the total overview overall. The first 2 columns are those license options that are handled by CodeMeter runtime during the access automatically. The last column is something that is more or less in your hand. First is the license transfer that should be covered by a webinar in itself. Maybe we should do a fourth part. And the rest are data fields. And the data fields can be accessed by your software. So if you have a license access to a license, you can access the data that is stored in this license. And there you can store individual stuff that you need, but that is not of relevance for CodeMeter in the sense of licensing. For example, serial numbers of devices if you want to bind a license to a special device. Or what we do very often is that we store the ticket number that was used to transfer a license from CodeMeter License Central to the end user system inside of some data field, and then you can set up some automation that after the access of the license, you check the data field and then read out the ticket number, and with this ticket you go with the gateways, part of the extensions to CodeMeter License Central, and check if there are any license changes available. And this is quite useful if you are in an online environment and have access to the systems. Then you can automate your software. If you have any questions to any of the other license options, the ones that are grayed out, just send us a short notice or email, and we come back with an answer. And some of the product item options will reappear in the false friends sections of this webinar. But now, enough slides, it's time to do some real life demo.
Okay, so let's go to CodeMeter License Central. Let's log into License Central. I'm logged in with the default credentials for sales. And last time we saw how to create a container types. And so in my case, I have created the container types for CMX license, CMX license 6947, for CM Cloud container, Europe 6000947, and for CM dongle 600947. In my case, I have also licenses with the demo code with the 60010, but today we will use my real firm code 6000947. So, and this was something that we showed last time. And today, let's check about how to create an item. And that's why we go to the item section and we click on the plus button, or we could have clicked on the create button on the left-hand side.
Yeah, and in my definition, an item combines the sales world, so your back-end systems, ERP, CRM, store, e-commerce stores, and the technical world of your software. And therefore, we need to cover both areas in the definition of an item. The first one is the type of the item. We stick to default. The other options will be covered in part 3 with the module items, but now let's stick to a regular item, a default item. First thing you need to define is the item ID. That's just a unique number, and usually this number matches the one of your back office system. The ERP and SAP, it would be the material number. In a shop system, it would be the order number. So for every item you need a license for, there should be a corresponding item in CodeMeter License Central. The name should be chosen so that the end user recognizes it from his order process, because that's the information that is shown during the transfer process in Web Depot or in the gateways, and therefore you should choose a name which is known to the end user. Those are the first settings that need to be done. And now comes the first decision that you as a software vendor needs to do, the container types where a license can be activated to. So in the end, the place where the license is stored on the system of the end user. And here you have two different options. Either you say, I only allow one container type. So like Rüdiger now, the license can only be activated in a CMX license. With this, you can create different pricing schemes. For example, a dongle license is more expensive than a CMX license because the hardware part comes into the game. But the downside is you need to define multiple items. For every supported container type, one item is needed. And that may clash with your end user, with your ERP system. So you have the options to define multiple container types. So you say, I don't define it with the item. I don't care. The end user can activate the license to whatever container type he wants to. But I limit it to them that I want to have used. So in this case, Rüdiger says CMX license, CM dongle, CM cloud container. And then during the transfer process, the end user must choose which of the locations should be used.
Just a question from my side, Jörg. Does this mean that I can now activate the software 3 times to a CMX container, once to a dongle, and a third license to a CM cloud container?
That would be nice for the end user, but in fact, it is not the case. A license can only be activated once. So if it was transferred to a CMX license, you can not do a second transfer to a CM dongle for the same license. To achieve this, if you say, I do not longer want it on my system, but use this dongle I have found in my desk, you need to rehost the license or return it to CodeMeter License Central. And if this return process was successful, then you can activate it a second time to a different target, different container type. And this is only possible if you allow the end user to choose which container should be used. If you define it in a way that you use different items for every container type, you would need to replace the CMX license with one that is for this CM dongle. And therefore, it's up to you how you define your items. In most of the projects I'm in, we have multiple container types because we leave the choice to the end user. An interesting part is the activation count. With the activation count, it's preset to 1. You can define how often a license can be reactivated. And that's usually a big misunderstanding. If you say, set the activation count to 2 or 3, most of the customers think, okay, I can activate the license 3 times. But that's not the case. You can activate it 1 time and reactivate it a second time. And reactivation is a phrase from Wibu where you say the license is already activated, but wasn't returned to CodeMeter License Central. And then I do a second activation, and with this reactivation, a new generation of the license is created. The old one is destroyed. And according to your global settings, usually the container where the old license was stored in is put to the blacklist. So Rüdiger, would it be a good idea to use something larger than 1?
So I don't remember any project where I recommended to use an activation count different than 1. So my recommendation definitely is to have it by 1. And then to handle this dynamically, if the user lost the license, to have a process that the user can automatically reactivate it via the portal, via some authorization. So in most of the projects, our recommendation is to put it to 1. Let's continue. Before we continue, we can switch to the basic mode, by the way, and then some of the advanced features that we saw on the right-hand side here are gone. And so let's continue with the basic view first, and then we see the license transfer scheme. So this is something which is part of another webinar, maybe part 4 of our series about using and configuring License Central. But now let's go to the important part, to the license entries. And in the license entry, we have to define the product code. And the product code is the technical representation of a feature or of a product. So typically, if you have different products, Word, Excel, then you can say product code 1000 for one, product code 2000 for the other one. If you have a feature-based software, like my sample notepad as basic version with the additional feature, change the font, with the additional feature, syntax highlighting for C#, hex view editor, and so on. And then I would change or would define a different product code for every feature. And so for the feature where I want to create the license or the template for the license, the item, I need to define the product code here. And let's simply use the product code 1000. There are different actions, and Jörg, which of the actions should we use, can we use?
So in most of the projects, in the meantime, I use only add. because License Central now has a good feature with replacing an existing license, and in this case, add is sufficient to model. Add means every time you transfer a license from CodeMeter License Central to end user system, a new entry in the target container for this product code will be created. The other options, update, add, and update, are more historical. Update, add has still some special use cases, which we show later, but update is something I hardly use anymore, because with an update you need to have some basic item in the license, and then the update license can only be transferred to this container if this basic license is already there. And this makes some processes quite complicated, because you need always take care that the basic license is already there. And if you first try to activate the update license after the basic, then it doesn't work. If you want to withdraw the basic license and there is an update already installed, it won't work. And therefore, it's not that easy to use update licenses, and we try to avoid it. Eventually, maybe update add, but most of the times it's the action add.
Okay, and now we can add the license options. So the license options where we picked a few of them. And here we see all the options listed, even activation time, expiration time, feature map, license quantity. And so let's pick simply, Jörg said we want to have a product text for every license, and we say product text and set it to my cool software. Okay. Of course, we can add more license options, so it's not a one license option thing. So we can say, okay, we want to create a floating network license, and for floating network license, we need to set the license quantity, as Jörg mentioned in the presentation. And there's the option to set the license quantity to a special value, or to add it, so to, if there is already a license, to add this amount of license quantity. Typically in our projects, we use the set option, which is combined with the add of the item itself. So a new item is created with this amount of licenses inside. And Jörg, if I want to have different license quantities, so maybe I want to sell one license quantity 1, 5, and 10. Should I set the value here fixed, or how should I do this when I have different sales packages?
In the end, like everything, it depends on your sales processes. If your sales process says, I have a 1-seat license, a 5-seat license, and a 10-seat license, and I can only buy one of those sets, you need 3 items where you set and have a static value for the specific addition. In this case, 5 or 10. If you say, I have in the end back office system something configurable where I only say I want to sell a floating user license, but the number of seats are defined in the sales order, then you can use a feature of CodeMeter License Central, which Rüdiger already activated, the allow value modification. In this case, the value is not statically stored in the item, only preset value is there. And then you say the real value is specified during the order process. Then you need to give it a name, and this name is then used as a parameter. In the UI of CodeMeter License Central, this is the display name. But if you do some automation, this is exactly the name that must be given with the automation calls, and therefore you shouldn't write some lyric inside this field. So keep it simple so that you know exactly what is meant, and then use it this way.
Yeah, I think we should make a short interception. So I will save the item here. And let's take a look how it really looks in the sales process. So SAP, my first cool software. And if I create an order for this license, then this section order specific parameters pops up with the name seats that we have defined. And as Jörg mentioned, if it comes from an automatic process like SAP or Salesforce, then of course this is the name of the field and then the value 1. And so if I say I want to create a 6-user floating network license, which is possible in this case, I need to enter the number 6, and then I can press on OK, continue, and I would be able to create a license for 6 users.
Yeah, and the license quantity is, by the way, one of the rare options where we may go for update add, because as I said, it depends on your sales processes. If you go for the set and the replace order with action add, then your end users, your back-end system must always know the exact number of seats. So take a simple sample, user buys 5 seats, and then he wants to have 5 additional seats. With the replace mechanism, your software then needs to create a replace order and says now he has 10. But sometimes this is not possible because the ERP system or the shop system doesn't know this, or you don't know where the end user wants to activate the 5 seats to, and then you just sell him 5 additional seats. And in this case, you need to set the action to update add, the operation of the license quantity to add, and then you can define or model sales processes where you just buy or sell 5 additional seats.
Yeah, we simply continue with a few more of the options. And so, for instance, I told you with the expiration time, there's the option to either set it to a fixed date, or for especially trial and demo versions, you can say to relative, and relative means add. And with add, you can say something like 30 days. And this would mean then when you activate a license, it would be 30 days or today plus 30 days. So it would be calculated dynamically during the activation. One question which comes in my mind is what happens if we want to write the ticket number? Jörg has told us that it's a good use case to have the ticket number in the license so that the user can identify licenses if you have different licenses. But if you want to write a ticket number, the ticket is created after or during the sales process. So it is created after the order. So we cannot put this on order. How could we handle something like a ticket, Jörg?
Yeah, in the end, this is a real egg hen problem. Because as Rüdiger said, if I create a new license, the ticket is only created after the order process or within the order process. So I cannot store it inside of the license. But CodeMeter License Central offers a second modification option for the allow value modification. This is on activation. And this means the real value of this license is given during the process when the license is transferred from CodeMeter License Central to the end user systems. So this comes handy if you want to, for example, store the ID of a system inside of the license, or as we often use it, the ticket number. And Rüdiger uses a display name for which is called ticket, and this is one of the predefined ones which is automatically handled by license portal or gateways in the extensions. And therefore, if you use this mechanism Coli on activation ticket, the used ticket will afterwards be stored in the license, and because it is a Coli field, the user can read out the license.
Okay, so with this we saw some basic configurations, and simply let's check some samples. So if you get a demo license central, there are some predefined items, and let's simply check a few of the interesting fields there. And so for instance, we have a standard single user license. In this case, there are no special option sets. We have set the text. we have set the feature map as flagging for the version. We set Kohli on activation to write the ticket inside. And we set the license quantity. It should be a single user license to 1 local. And we simply say the name of our company and want to write this to the firm item text. And so this is a configuration of a simple item. Maybe another interesting configuration is the subscription renewed by the ERP system. And in this case, we define an expiration time. And this expiration time is set on order. This means the ERP system says the subscription currently goes until the 31st of December 2024. And when the subscription gets renewed by the ERP system sends us a replace order and saying, this license with this ticket and this ticket license ID should now be replaced with a new license, which has now a new expiration time of the 31st December 2025. So this is one sample for this ERP renewed licenses subscriptions. And another sample is the subscription which renews itself automatically. I need to click on the periodic renew. And in this case, the expiration time is set to on activation with the auto renewal expiration keyword. And this means that the license is created, the license is activated, and with a special rule, the end date is calculated and set. And automatically in the background, license portal regenerates the rule. And if the license is not cancelled, the subscription is not cancelled, the user will get a renew or update license button when the cancellation time or the notice period is over. And then the user automatically can update the license. So this means this is a configuration where the license gets renewed automatically in the background. And last but not least, pay-per-use. In this case, and this is one of the two examples where we say update add might be a good choice, which is either adding license quantities or adding units, unit count. In this case, we say update add. And here we use the unit counter and we say add. This means if there is already a unit counter, please add the 120 to the remaining units. Or if there's no unit counter, then please create a new item. So, and these are some samples that are already delivered with our demo license central. And with this, let's go back to our presentation and let's have a look at false friends and best practice tips.
The first false friends we often see is the usage period, because many customers think, oh, usage period is cool. We can define some subscription with the usage period, because the usage period states the license is valid for the defined number of days from the first use. So the idea is, okay, I issue a license with a usage period to the end user. And the subscription really starts in a commercial sense when the user uses it the first time. And that's a quite bad idea, because that's a remote process performed on the end user system. So you need some kind of back channel when the subscription really would have been started, when the billing should be started, and therefore use some other mechanism than the usage period. As I said, it's an offline process or a remote process, so CodeMeter License Central doesn't know anything of all this stuff. The timestamp of the first use is stored in the license in the CM container, and then it has an expiration date. The start time plus the number of days equals the expiration time, and this expiration time is then checked like the real license option expiration time against the CodeMeter system time. But as I said, CodeMeter License Central and usage period are no good friends. So if the usage period has been started, all the processes which rely on rehosting, so return the license to CodeMeter License Central and activate it to another CM container, don't work, because a started usage period cannot be returned, and therefore try to avoid it. Beside of that, there are some license models where the usage period comes quite handy. And one is an emergency license where you say, okay, if, however, the regular license breaks, the container breaks, the dongle is lost, or whatever happened, I want to enable my customer to still be able to work. And therefore, I issue an emergency license. This emergency license is bundled to my within my software, and then the end user can just enable this emergency license on his system and can work for a defined period, for example, 5 days. And in these 5 days, the support must be able to recreate the original license. Or another license model for the usage period are pre-delivered demo or trial licenses where you bundle a 30-day trial period with your software. You just hand out a software package, and with the first start of the software, the trial period starts. For those license models, usage period is okay, but in that case, License Central is not involved, and therefore you can use it.
There are more false friends. One is the activation time. So Jörg told you there are 3 time-based options: activation time, expiration time, and usage period. And expiration time, very good option with set and with this relative update. The activation time is the time license valid from. The clock in CodeMeter, the CodeMeter system time, is protected against time warps to the backwards. It is not protected against time shifts forward. And so an activation time cannot be checked against the CodeMeter system time because this could be manipulated forward. And that's why we need to check this against an internet handshake, which we call the CodeMeter certified time. And that's why this feature needs an internet connection. In case of CodeMeter Cloud, the internet connection is a must, so it must be there. And in this case, you can use it. But for the offline devices like CMACT or the CodeMeter dongle, activation time is in a lot of use cases not usable due to the requirement of this internet connection. Constraints. What we have not showed you in the product configuration or item configuration, there is a section for constraints. And with constraints, you could define dependencies between different items, saying something like, you cannot activate this item if another item with this item ID is there. Or you can only activate this item if another item is there as a prerequisite, as a requirement. So for instance, you can have an additional feature only if you also have the basic feature. The problem is that this is very complex and that the verification is done on a machine way in the order of the license generation. And with this update add, this role is very complex. And that's why we try to avoid to use constraints and to implement this on a, let's say, customized way that it really fits to your use case. As Jörg mentioned, update and update add. I have no idea of a project where I used update in the last 10 years. Update add, especially for the unit counter and in some cases for the license quantity. But in most cases, it is better to use replace if this is possible. And in most cases, it is possible. We have showed you that one item has one product code. This is not a complete truth. We could also have multiple product codes for one item. But this is also something which makes rules and processes in the background too complex. And that's why we say our recommendation is to have one product code per item. And if you want to stick product codes together, use bundles, use module items or something like this. And this is part of our third webinar or the third part of the webinar series. And this is a small teaser already to the next webinar. And same with the feature map. If you want to have feature-based licenses, which is similar to the multiple entries per item. In this case, also, we would recommend you to take a look at our next webinar where we speak about the feature-based licenses in detail.
Yeah, this is really the first webinar that I do where we have a cliffhanger. We teased the next part very often, and we show you one of the entry pages of this one, because with everything we told you up until now, we would have two different approaches for feature-based licenses. One would be, I have a single product item and use the feature map with all the downsides of this approach, or I use separate product items, so one product code for every module product feature I want to license, but that has downsides as well. And the solutions for this will then be the module items, and this is something we show you in the next part.
Yeah, and with this, we are done with the basic item creation or item configuration in License Central. And I saw there are already a few questions in the chat box. Jörg answered a lot of them already. And one, I was a little bit smiling. Someone, it looks like someone saw that I have the cloud Europe, and the question was, are there other cloud regions than Europe? Yes. So currently, today, we are offering two regions, Europe and Asia. And so you can configure, of course, you need to order both regions at our sales team, but then you can configure the cloud container in Asia and the cloud container in Europe. And you can define if you add both regions to one item, and then your user can choose between the two regions, or you can enter only one region, and then you define with the item itself to which region or in which region your user can activate the license. In one of the next versions of the license portal, we plan a geo location detection so that we can then make a recommendation. This is the closest CM Cloud server. Do you want to activate this to this closest CM Cloud server? And also planned for end of 2024 is to have another region in the US, so that we have America, Europe, and Asia as the three regions for CodeMeter cloud servers.
Yeah, there was one question regarding the expiration time, because you said it is checked against the internal system time of the CM container, this virtual clock, and this is synchronized with the system, but wouldn't it be possible to set the system time of the system in the past, and then the license would be active again?
No, this is not possible. In CodeMeter, I told you there is the CodeMeter system time. And this is something which is running in the firmware in the dongle, or running in the software in a similar way in the CMX license, and as well in the cloud. And so every container has its own clock. And as soon as the container gets connected, power on or connected to the computer, this clock starts running. And when you remove the dongle or you power off the computer, then we write the current time of the clock back into the dongle or back into the CMX license. And so this means it's a time which is running only into the future, only forward. And when we start the computer for the next time, then we read out the last store time. And we have additional time sources like the current PC clock, and in case of the dongle, maybe an additional real-time clock, which is running for the first 5 years in the dongle. And then we take the different sources which are available. We check which is the best time. Of course, we trust our own internal time most. But if the PC clock is into the future, then we make a time warp into the future. And so it's not possible to reset a time which was already reached in the container system time. You cannot reset this to an older time. So this is the security of the time of CodeMeter.
And the last open question is for the global settings. The question is if there is a way to override the global settings in one item individually.
Yes, so this is something that we have not shown you in the demo, but we can jump back to the demo. And I told you there's this basic and advanced view, and we can switch to the advanced view. And then here we can define that we want to override the split allowed global setting from global to yes or no. Same for the deactivation allowed, and same for the container type switch allowed, where we say yes is the only possible solution. But for the other two, you can define if you want to allow them or not.
And that have been all open questions. So I hope we showed you something that you can use in your future projects. Thank you very much for your time, and maybe we see or meet us in some project of yours. Bye-bye.
Same for me. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.